The 2020s have been a chaotic time for pop music, with even some of the biggest artists falling from grace. In this video, we'll look at 8 of the biggest fall-offs of the 2020s so far. Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X's rise to fame in 2019 was nothing short of historic. With Old Town Road, a viral genre-bending smash, he spent 19 consecutive weeks on number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, breaking the all-time record. The song became an internet phenomenon and was one of the first times that TikTok propelled an artist from unknown to global superstar. His debut EP 7 had moderate success, with Panini and Rodeo gaining radio play, but all eyes were on how he would evolve musically. In 2021, he delivered his highly anticipated debut album Montero, which spawned hits like Montero Call Me By Your Name and Industry Baby with Jack Harlow, both of which hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and both crossing 2 billion streams on Spotify. The project was a huge success and became his peak before the start of the decline. His 2022 releases were minimal, and in 2023, his single Late to the Party Fuck BET was a bitter song that only peaked at number 67 on the Billboard Hot 100, a big drop from his prior success. He started off 2024 with J. Christ, once again relying on the rage bait tactic that worked before, but this time, people were tired of it, as it only peaked at number 69 on the Billboard Hot 100 and disappeared in quick time. He has been releasing single after single to find the sound of his upcoming album, but nothing has stuck. The once inescapable presence of Lil Nas X has now gone quiet, with many wondering where his next hit is coming from. Khaled. Khaled burst onto the scene in 2017 with his debut album American Teen, which featured massive hits like Location and Young, Dumb and Broke. His smooth blend of R&B and pop earned him 5 Grammy nominations, and he was named Top New Artist at the Billboard Music Awards. By 2019, he was a streaming giant. His single Talk became his biggest hit to date, reaching number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and his sophomore album Free Spirit debuted on number 1 on the Billboard 200, with collaborations ranging from Billie Eilish to Ed Sheeran. He now has 10 songs in the Billion Club on Spotify. It looked like Khaled was going to define the sound of the early 2020s, but despite the strong foundation, he has struggled to keep that momentum going. His 2021 mixtape Scenic Drive barely made a dent, with none of its singles reaching the top 40. The much hyped single New Normal flopped, failing to even chart on the Hot 100. With single after single, he was struggling to connect. The buzz around his 3rd studio album, originally titled Everything Is Changing, fizzled out completely with multiple delays. Despite maintaining millions of monthly listeners on Spotify because of his earlier hits, Khaled's mainstream visibility has dropped dramatically. He released his latest album Sincere in 2024, which flopped, selling just 17,000 units in his first week. In an era where pop artists need to adapt fast and frequently to reinvent themselves, Khaled's subtle approach has led to his fall-off. Camila Cabello. Camila Cabello kicked off her solo career with a bang. After departing Fifth Harmony, her 2018 debut album Camila was a commercial success, debuting on number 1 on the Billboard 200 and spawning the global smash Havana, which topped the Billboard Hot 100 and has now surpassed 2.2 billion streams on Spotify. Her follow-up singles, including Never Be the Same and Señorita with Shawn Mendes, kept her firmly in the spotlight. At that point, Camila seemed destined for long-term pop dominance, but the tide shifted rapidly. Her 2022 album Familia marked a significant commercial decline. Despite a more experimental Latin-influenced sound, the album debuted on number 10 on the Billboard 200 with just 27,000 units sold in its first week, a far cry from the numbers of her debut. The lead single Don't Go Yet barely scraped the Hot 100, peaking on number 42, and next singles like Psycho Freak failed to chart at all. Even though Bam Bam did relatively well, the era came and went with surprisingly little impact. In 2024, Camila attempted a reinvention with the hyperpop inspired single I Love It featuring Playboi Carti. The song was a failure, peaking at just number 81 on the Billboard Hot 100. While it is clear she is still experimenting and pushing boundaries, the album CXOXO flopped, debuting on number 13 on the Billboard 200, earning 36,000 units in its first week. She has really fallen off from the heights she was at the beginning of the 2020s. Katy Perry. Katy Perry dominated the late 2000s and early 2010s, becoming a true pop icon. She made history, and from 2008 to 2014, she was a chart machine, with 9 #1 hits and over 100 million certified digital singles sold in the US alone. Her 2013 album Prism continued the streak, and even 2017's Witness, despite being divisive, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. But 2020's Smile marked a serious decline. The album debuted at #5 on the Billboard 200, with only 50,000 units sold, her weakest debut at the time. The singles Daisy, Smile, and Never Really Over failed to crack the top 20 of the Billboard Hot 100, which was shocking for an artist who once lived at the top spot. While she continued her successful career as a judge on American Idol and somehow maintained her public presence, her musical relevance drastically dropped. Smile came and went, but the most telling sign of Katy's fall-off was her 2024 album 143. It promised to be a return to form, but it was anything but that. It was led by the lead single Woman's World, which was instantly hated when it was released for being out of touch. It started off the era on the wrong foot. She struggled to generate any positive attention, with the album debuting at #6, selling just 48,000 units in its first week. Katy Perry's fall from the heights of her early 2010s superstardom really came in the 2020s, as she is now more of a legacy artist, and no one seems to care about her new music other than to mock it. Shawn Mendes. At the tail end of the 2010s, Shawn Mendes was on top of the world. His self-titled 2018 album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 and produced multi-platinum singles like In My Blood and Lost in Japan. By 2019, he was headlining arenas, had a global smash with Señorita, a duet with then-girlfriend Camila Cabello, and was being hailed as one of pop's biggest male artists. Señorita has now surpassed 3 billion streams on Spotify, solidifying his mainstream dominance. However, the 2020s have not been his kind. His 2020 album Wonder debuted at #1 in the US, but the success was short-lived. The album quickly dropped off the charts, with its title track peaking at a modest #18 on the Billboard Hot 100, a noticeable step down from his previous lead singles. Despite a Netflix documentary and a global tour announcement, Shawn faced a wave of criticism for the album's overly polished sound. Even Monster, a high-profile collaboration with Justin Bieber, peaked at just #8 and disappeared fast from radio. Things took a deeper turn when he cancelled his entire 2022 world tour to focus on his mental health, leaving many fans concerned and marking a clear pause in his momentum. By 2024, Shawn attempted a comeback with singles like It'll Be Okay and The More Upbeat When You're Gone, but none managed to climb higher than #38 on the Billboard Hot 100 or make a lasting cultural impact. Then he released his latest self-titled album in 2024, which debuted at #26 on the Billboard 200, selling just 11,000 copies in his first week. It was a big flop, not managing to spawn any hits. While his musical talent is unquestionable, the combination of creative stagnation and a cooling fanbase led him to fall off. The 2020s have been his quietest years yet. DaBaby. DaBaby entered the 2020s on fire. Kirk in 2019 and Blame It On Baby in 2020 both debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. His mega hit Rockstar featuring Roddy Ricch spent 7 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the defining tracks of the early pandemic. He was everywhere, from award shows to festivals. His feature on Dua Lipa's mega hit Levitating made him a superstar. But what followed was one of the quickest fall-offs in recent memory. In 2021, DaBaby made homophobic comments during his Rolling Loud performance. That triggered huge backlash. Brands dropped him, festival bookings were cancelled, and his peers distanced themselves. Dua Lipa even took his credit of their collaboration. He refused to apologize at first and went on a failed apology tour. His next releases flopped, with his 2022 album Baby on Baby 2 debuting at #34 on the Billboard 200 and becoming one of the worst reviewed albums of that year. An astonishing drop, considering his dominance just 2 years earlier. By 2023, DaBaby was more of a cautionary tale than a pop culture presence. His attempts at redemption haven't helped. It is clear that both his public perception and musical relevance have dwindled. He had around 54 million monthly listeners on Spotify at his peak, but it has now plummeted to over 25 million monthly listeners. For an artist who once couldn't miss, he now struggles to stay afloat, proving how quickly fame can evaporate when controversy and complacency collide. Kanye West. At the start of the 2020s, Kanye West was still one of the most legendary artists of all time. His 2019 gospel album Jesus is King had just won a Grammy, and in 2021, Donda debuted on number 1 on the Billboard 200, earning more than 300,000 units in its first week. The album was received well, proving that Kanye still had it. However, what followed was a dramatic fall from grace. In late 2022, his series of anti-Semitic remarks caused a lot of controversy, resulting in the loss of every major brand partnership he had, including Adidas, which terminated their Yeezy deal. Forbes reported that the Adidas split alone dropped his net worth from an estimated $2 billion to $400 million. He was also banned from platforms like Instagram and Twitter, turning the public against him. Even when he made a comeback with his 2024 collab album Vultures 1 with Ty Dolla $ign, which debuted on number 1, it kinda came and went. The damage has been both commercially and culturally. Once considered an innovator, Ye has become increasingly unhinged. He routinely goes on crazy rants, and his latest albums are some of his worst. His music is becoming lazier and unlistenable. Kanye West was a music icon, but Ye is an attention whore. He has effectively killed his legacy in the 2020s. Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez was in the midst of a breakout moment when the 2020s began. He had a couple of hits in the 2010s, but his 2020 album, The New Toronto 3, debuted on number 2 on the Billboard 200, and his quarantine-era Quarantine Radio Live earned millions of views on Instagram, even breaking a record. He also scored a major Billboard Hot 100 hit with Love, and was widely recognized as one of the most versatile artists, good at both singing and rapping. He even did 80s pop great with The Color Violet, now crossing 1 billion streams on Spotify. But in July 2020, everything changed. He was accused of shooting Megan Thee Stallion in the foot after a party in LA. He denied the allegation for years, but social media speculations and media frenzy turned the case into a circus. He even released an entire album Daystar in 2020, addressing the controversy without really addressing what really happened. While the project debuted on number 10, it was widely criticized for capitalizing on the incident. And finally, in 2023, he was found guilty of assault with a firearm and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. The conviction effectively killed his mainstream music career. He was still releasing music behind bars, but it is currently being reported that he has been stabbed while in prison and is fighting for his life. He still has a lot of support among a certain section of the internet, but his story is now a cautionary tale. What should have been a defining decade for him became hell on earth because of one night. Which fall-offs in the 2020s did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.